Whenever I hear the name Martin Gore, a few things come to mind. Brilliant songwriter, great singer, pioneer of electronic music, and someone who gets to dress in a very kinky way that only they can get away with, and he pulls it off really well. Another thing that we haven't spoken about in this channel is the Martin Gore laugh. I mean, Martin Gore does have the best laugh in music, doesn't he? Hi guys, and welcome to Piano and Keyboard Artist, where we discuss the artists related to pianos, keyboards and synthesizers. And continuing with my Depeche Mode album review series, this is part 2 of Some Great Reward. So this is part 2 of the Depeche Mode Some Great Reward album review. If you've not seen part 1 yet, I will leave a link in the description below. I'd recommend you watch that first before you watch this video. In part 1, we discussed the album in general. We also spoke about the vocals, the sound of the album, some general production techniques that we used. And in part 2 now, we are going to discuss the album track listing. And then at the end, I'm going to answer the 5 questions and give the album a score out of 10. So go grab a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, or whatever your favorite brew is, and let's get right into this. This album has 9 tracks on it, and my favorite Depeche Mode albums always have about 9 or 10 tracks. That seems to be the right amount of tracks for a Depeche Mode album as far as the legendary ones are concerned. Violator had 9 songs on them, Songs of Faith and Devotion had 10, A Broken Frame had 10 songs as well. And that seems to be like I don't know why, but I just seem to like that running order of 10 songs, and I'll explain why later. I think that in some more recent albums they have about 12 or 14 songs, and I think that's mainly due to the fact that I think Dave Gahan has contributed songs. And now, as hearsay and rumor has it, apparently there was a bit of friction between David and Martin because David wanted to contribute some songs, and of course Martin was apparently not very happy about that, and this is apparently where Fletch, the peacekeeper, stepped in and did his usual thing of mediation and made sure that everyone was happy. But anyway, as I say, these days they seem to be releasing albums with 12, 14 songs, but back in those days, the good old days, it was more 9, 10 song albums. So kicking off with the first song on this album, Something to Do. The moment you hit play, you just yell, I lie, I lie. Dum 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 dum. The whole feel of the song is very tense. It has a real sense of urgency to it. Is there something to do? Is there something to do? It's very scary. And in part 1, I talked about the lyrics being grey sky over a black town. I can feel depression all around. To me, that was Martin speaking about possibly growing up in Basildon. One of my subscribers, Patricia Richardson, hello to you, she commented on one of my videos, and she said, no, that lyric, grey sky over a black town, was actually in reference to the coal mine strikes that were in 1984 in England here under the Thatcher government. So thank you for clarifying that, Patricia. This just goes to show that within the lyrics of this album, Martin was not only writing from a very personal point of view, but he was also very outward looking and very this album is the classic, really this is the first album where the pieces came together and sort of laid the foundation for the classic mode. And of course, by the time they got to Black Celebration, they'd really found their way. But this was lyrically a lot about feelings, domination, politics, sex, domination, sexual innuendos. Martin, you kinky bastard. Right, so looking at Something to Do, I just want to demonstrate some of the chords, and I want to use mainly the piano sound throughout the demonstration of this video. And the reason for that is I want to sort of highlight the chords and the sort of structures. And I find by using the piano sound, which is a very sort of vanilla sound. You're not sort of distracted by the synthesizer sound. So as I always say, if you can play a song on a piano without all the synthesized sounds and the bells and whistles that go with it, it does show how strong the songs are. So let's look at something to do. And as I say, it's got a really tense, unsettling, agitated sound. Now, just look at that. What's interesting is where they come in with the first vocal. Now, where the first lyric comes in is at a very awkward spot. When I say awkward is probably not the right word, but it catches you off guard. Like with a lot of Depeche Mode's music, it was always very unorthodox, off the wall, and as I say, a lot of things caught you off guard. And that's perfectly illustrated in where the first lyric comes in with the song. So, for instance, I suppose a more traditional way to attack the song would be at this part where you go. And then coming back at the F. My little girl, won't you come with me? But they don't come in on the F, they come in on this C. And that just gives it a very striking and sort of like intense opening to the song. So once again, hard to explain what I mean sometimes, but let me demonstrate again. So it goes. So instead of coming in the my little girl, it comes up to the C, which gives it that my little girl, won't you come with me, come with me. So where they choose to bring the first line in, it's obviously by design. It's just it's skin crawl kind of things. And once again, it's difficult to explain these things because these are personal feelings, how the songs relate to me. My little girl, won't you come with me, tell me, is there something to do, is there something to do? And this song, as I say, really taps perfectly into teenage angst and, you know, children growing up in industrial towns, boredom, sexual frustration, questions about morality, religion, and, you know, all the things that teenagers go through. It goes on to say, grey sky over a black town, I can feel depression all around. And as my subscriber Patricia said, that is talking about the coal mine strikes in Wales and the turmoil that was under the Thatcher government in England here in the 80s. But of course, even if you didn't know about that and you lived in a different country, you could relate to the line, grey sky over a black town, I can feel depression all around. You could relate to that as a teenager. I remember coming from a small mining town when I was a teenager in South Africa, and I could relate to that. Although we had perfect sunny skies, it wasn't as gloomy as it is here in England. I could relate to that lyric, I can feel depression all around. The great thing is, as I say, there are so many sexual references in this album, especially, and this is where they really got really kind of sexy. Construction Time again was more sort of industrial and kind of like talking about the landscape is changing and business and the world, and whereas this is very like, Martin had definitely grown up living in Berlin at the time. He definitely got into the whole fetish scene. Martin, you pervert. And that is illustrated by lines like, you've got your leather boots on. And I always found that was quite a strange line to get within, my little girl, won't you come with me, tell me, is there something to do? I'm growing crazy with boredom, come with me, you've got your leather boots on. It's like, why are you saying that? You've got your leather boots on. It's like he has to get that in. You've got your leather boots on. Martin, you kinky bastard. The song also goes into some really sort of interesting breaks where it just sounds really sort of discordant and machine-like and robotic. This opening track is very hard-hitting. It does sort of announce, we're back, we're serious, we're back harder than you've ever heard us before. And throughout the duration of the song, it is a very tense-sounding song. And by the time you get to track 2, which is Lie to Me, it's interesting because for the duration of the first song, you've got this kind of, it's really tense, dun, 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 it's really tense, and then when you get that opening, those opening synthesizer sounds to Lie to Me, it has a natural kind of like relief of the tension. And I always talked about Depeche Mode albums, how the way they lay them out, you know, the track listing, the track order, the running order of the tracks is so important, and they always seem to get it spot on. And that is perfectly illustrated once again in a song like Lie to Me, how it takes away that incredible tension from Something to Do, and it's no less engaging than Something to Do. It's like watching a horror movie, and you've got those tense moments, and then it cuts to daytime, and you have that kind of feeling of relief, and that's exactly what Lie to Me does. The opening synth chords are, and then you've got this really enigmatic melody. And Dave sings this in a very relaxed, almost subdued kind of tone. With the opening track, "My little girl, won't you come?" He's really going for it. It's really intense. And then, you know, for it to get to track 2, it's got that, "Come on, lie with me." It's a really breathy, relaxed, subdued vocal. And this is a song it's a little bit like Behind the Wheel. It's not so much submission, but it's more like lie to me, do it with sincerity. It's kind of like, I know you don't love me, but tell me you do, and let's just carry on this mundane, grey relationship. And of course, you could read into it any way you want to, but that's the great thing about Martin's songs, they are so open to interpretation, and he never sort of describes them because they are very personal to him, and he likes to leave the interpretation of his songs up to you, the listener, which is just the way it should be. So it has that enigmatic little... Once again, when you play them like that on a piano sound, they don't sound very interesting. But then again, using the synthesizers and the way they perfectly crafted those sounds, it does work brilliantly. It also has all these little motives. Come on and lie to me. Tell me you love me. Say I'm the only one. They're very simple, but as I say, within the context of the mix and everything, they work perfectly. Then it gets to the part, experiences have a lasting impression, but words once spoken don't mean a lot now. And it's got that, belief is the way of the innocent. And when I say innocent, I should say naive. And then it goes on to fascinating lyrics. So lie to me like they do it in the factory. And then he uses the word, make me listen just for a minute. And then make me think there's some truth in it, and then he uses the word, some great reward will be coming my way. And in that song, it's kind of like, it's very much, Lie to Me is very much I wouldn't say it's a feature track or a single. It's more just an album track, but they do sort of put the line, some great reward, in there, and it's kind of like thrown away. It's kind of like, when I say thrown away, not in a bad way, but it's kind of like they don't actually have a song on the album called Some Great Reward. It's just a lyric in an album track, so it's not like a major featured line of a song, which is interesting. Like they do it in the factory. Once again, we have a factory here. Yeah, fascinating. I love I love the intelligence behind Depeche Mode's music, Martin Gore's songwriting. There's a lot of intelligence and a lot of little Easter eggs and things hidden, and, you know, sometimes hidden tracks, and really just groundbreaking stuff that no one was doing at the time, especially not in the sort of mainstream circles. We then get on to track 3, which is an incredibly radical, groundbreaking track, the most sort of standout song on the album as far as, I think, innovation and approach to sound and acoustics and synthesis go. People Are People. Now, looking at the chord structures of People Are People, it's very simple. And it has a really sort of like robotic kind of sound. And I kind of, to my mind, I kind of break it down into, there are 2 sides to People Are People. There's the dum 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 bum 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 bum. It's very, if you listen to that melody, it's almost childlike. It's got that robotic And once again, this is hard to explain because this is just how I see it. But it's almost like this big menacing machine. It's this big menacing machine. Bum, 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 bum. It's menacing, but if you listen to the simplicity of that melody, it's bum, 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 bum. It's almost childlike. So it's interesting. It's this menacing sound with a really childlike type melody. And I don't know if I'm explaining myself right, but this is the way it makes sense to me. And that robotic sort of menacing side of the song has very simple chords. It's just people are people, so why should it be? You and I should get along so awfully. People are people, so why should it be? You and I should get along so awfully. Then the and it's got the bell and interesting sound that it's obviously a voice where they went ooh, and then they pitched it and combined with a bell. And of course, how they created those sounds, only they know, but they were very, very iconic sounds. And so we're different colors and we're different creeds and different people have different needs. It's very sort of one note, but then you've got cordial information over that note, but not in the form of chords, but rather in the form of sounds and found sounds and ensemble sounds. It's really brilliant. So you've got all that machine-like melody, as I say, and the machine-like roboticness of the song is usually when Dave Garn is singing. I'm not saying his delivery is robotic. His voice is very powerful and direct, but the instrumentation under Dave's voice while he's singing the people are people, so why should it be? You and I should get along so awfully. It's that bum, bum, bum. But once it gets to Martin's part, that's when it becomes really light and human. And that's what's the great part about this song is how it goes from that heavy, strong, robotic, menacing, and then it gets to Martin's part, which is I can't understand what makes a man hate another man. Help me understand. And Martin sings it in his beautiful, sweet balladeer voice that he has. And just the way it contrasts between Dave's direct and so we're different colors and Martin's I can't understand what makes a man hate another man. Help me understand. The way it's that contrast between Martin's voice and Dave's voice, and Martin's part being the really light, sensitive part, and Dave's being the sort of machine menacing part. I hope I'm making sense here, guys, but I think you can understand. And when we get to the Martin's part, it's very simple. It's just from the F to the D minor, then back to the F, then to the G, and they've got a lovely little melody which they play over the top of that, which is of course in Depeche Mode 101, which to me is the best version of People Are People, it starts off with that dun 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 dun. It's got a really epic intro, and as I say, the beauty of the song has so many layers, but to me it's that contrast between Dave's performance and Martin's being this sweet, warm, I can't understand what makes a man hate another man, help me understand. And then Dave's, direct, powerful delivery over the sort of like robotic machine parts, as I call them, and they've got that. And despite the fact that they're sophisticated and menacing sounding, they are accompanied by a very childlike melody. Really, really groundbreaking. I think a lot of you will agree with me that People Are People is a classic song, and I personally would love to hear it one more time live. Track 4, It Doesn't Matter. On this album, Martin gets 2 songs, and that seems to be sort of from this point moving forward, Martin usually gets 2 songs on an album and a little bit more, as like on Black Celebration. But as I say, on previous albums, Martin would get 1 solo song, now he's getting 2. It Doesn't Matter Very sweet ballad, a little bit erasure-y with the sounds, but good. Not much to say about it. Pretty much an album track, and I enjoyed it. I think he sang it really well, and I like the sentiment about it. It doesn't matter if this all shatters, nothing lasts forever, but I'm praying that we're staying together. Martin, you hopeless romantic. Track 5, Stories of Old. Take a look at old selected cases. You'll find love has been wrecked. Another album track. Really like this one, actually. I really like you. I'm attracted to you. The way you move, the things you do. I'm really in heaven whenever we kiss. But oh no, you won't change me. You can try for an eternity. That's a bit of stubbornness, I suppose. I love you. I'm really attracted to you, but you won't change me. We won't sacrifice anything at all to love. Take a look at old selected cases. You'll find love has been wrecked by both sides compromising, amounting to a disastrous effect. So much within a pop song there that you can read into. It's funny when I just hear myself speaking those words, I go, wow, this is deep. This is not. Depeche Mode were at a point now where no one could cast them aside. Cast it all aside. They're now at a stage where no one can say, look, you're just a disposable pop act. I think this, as I say, this album really was the groundbreaking moment where people looked up and went, okay, we may not like your music, but we respect you as credible artists. We'll just leave it at that. We then come to track 6, or the first song on side 2, which is... Somebody, one of Martin's most beautiful songs. It's not one of my favorite Martin Gore songs. Having said that, it's better than a lot of the more recent ones he's done. But I think that will always be, in most Depeche Mode's hearts, there'll always be that tender moment of the show where, Dave goes off and has a chill out, and you get Alan Wilder will jump on the piano and it's just that tender moment. I want somebody to share. The interesting thing about the song was that this was like the first sort of piano ballad or sort of like acoustic song they did, but still within that they still pushed the frontiers of technology, because it wasn't sort of recorded just as a piano ballad. It was, but if you listen to the song, it's got atmospheric sounds. Apparently, it was atmospheric sounds that Martin, he had a tape recorder and he recorded it in a dining room at a restaurant or at a dinner somewhere. And you can hear all these atmospheric sounds and sort of like howling and droning sounds. And which is interesting because it's this beautiful song, but in the background, you've got sounds that are quite sort of like atmospheric and a little bit, they're not distracting, but they just add to it. But it's definitely not the approach that someone would have usually done with a song where they would just recorded the piano and sang. They definitely used technology. They also had like a heartbeat, like boom, 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 which became like the foundation, kind of like the beat. Daniel Miller also talks about there these massive tape loops that they used to fade in and out, and they had no idea if it would work. They were purely pushing the frontiers of sound, and it did. There was a lot of experimentation in those days. Another fascinating fact, Alan Wilder said that while they were recording this song, Martin decided he wanted to give a more honest performance, so as a result, he decided to strip off and do it naked. Martin, you pervert. Martin, you kinky bastard. And Martin did do a fantastic vocal on that song. As with all the vocals on this album, they're outstanding. We then get... a groundbreaking, iconic song. It's a lot, it's a lot, it's a lot like life. There are so many things we can discuss on this, and You know, guys, I talked about these album review series as being, you know, very in-depth, but even with each album being split over 2 parts, there's still so much we can talk about. It is worth addressing these songs separately in separate videos. But Master and Servant, there's a new game we'd like to play, you see. The game we're at, reality. You treat me like a dog, get me down on my knees. We call it Master and Servant. The time-old story of humanity. Domination's the name of the game. In bed or in life, they're all just the same, except the one you fulfilled at the end of the day. Here, Martin has summed so much up in this song. What was that saying? You can get away with anything if it's got a good tune and it's a pop song, something like that. This song really, Master and Servant, is really probably like I would say it's probably the signature song of this album. You know, it has the innovation. Well, they all have the innovation, but it more the lyrics, dominations, than the fact that it's so ambiguous. It's talking about, you know, dominance in the bedroom, but at the same time, within the same lyric, it's talking about dominance in the world, the grand scheme of things. You know, people, master and servant, and that could also be, knowing the way Martin was thinking at the time, S&M. You know, slave. Hit me, boy, hit me with your rhythm stick, hit me. Martin, you kinky bastard. What's interesting as well is if you watch the documentaries on the Depeche Mode Remaster series, it was interesting how this song, I believe, was the most difficult song to mix. I don't know, I think that Daniel said they were sitting for like, was it a couple of weeks or 10 days? I don't know, it was taking them so long. And with all this, you know, going over and over and trying to get it as best they could, they realized that at the end, they had forgotten to put the snare in. So and I never ever noticed that until Daniel said that on the documentary. You will only notice that once you heard Daniel say that, because if you go listen to it now and you go, oh yeah, the snare is missing. But then again, because I think of due to the nature of Depeche Mode, you see, it's not dance music. This kind of music, it's a lot more sophisticated than dance music. No offense to you if you do dance music, but it's not just kick, snare. You know, the kick and snare are there, but there are so many other elements which surround it. So I think if it was dance music and the snare was missing, it would be really obvious. But within the context of this type of music, you know, the fact that the snare was missing on the last chorus, nobody noticed. And you do notice it now when you listen to it. And even if you did notice that the snare was missing at the time, I mean, due to the sort of creative, off-the-wall nature of Depeche Mode's music, you would have probably just thought that it was done intentionally. We then go on to a track which I feel is one of the most underrated Depeche Mode tracks of all time. It is also, in my opinion, Alan Wilder's best contribution towards Depeche Mode, and it's one of my favorite Depeche Mode songs, and that is If You Want. Interesting, I'm going to link the demo to If You Want below. The demo was very, very good. I believe it's Alan Wilder singing it on the demo, because, well, obviously it's his song. We've come back to this before, where Alan's always said he's not a songwriter. He doesn't see himself as a songwriter, but, you know, the songs that he did contribute were fantastic. And If You Want, to me, is the ultimate Alan Wilder Depeche Mode song contribution, and one of the most underrated Depeche Mode songs, and one of my personal favorite Depeche Mode songs. It's just got this obscurity all the way through. It's got a cold, menacing, and what really gives it its sound is the way Dave sings it, working weeks come, and you've got Alan singing over Dave, well, singing at the same pitch, so he's not singing a harmony or lower, they're singing in unison together. And just the way, metaphorically speaking, the way Alan's voice wraps around Dave's and comes at you, working weeks come to its end. This makes your skin crawl, and we get that do-do-do-do-do-do-do, buzz, buzz, buzz. And for that buzz, 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 they used the Master and Servant sample, which they repitched and sometimes reversed. Another subject for another video. This song is intense. Just the Exercise your basic right. It's very droning and hypnotic, and I just love it. And once again, I sometimes am at a loss for words to describe how I feel about it. It was completely off the wall compared to anything out there, and in a non-pretentious way. It just stood head and shoulders above a lot of things that were out at the time. The song goes out on a very serious note. Blasphemous rumors. And I believe that this song was barred in quite a few states in America because of its anti-religious sentiment. I don't see it as that way. I think it's very true what Martin's saying is he's just going, God, if you exist, why do you allow so much shit to happen? And this is a very dark, menacing song from the opening line. And even the sounds that are used, and I particularly like that like a sequence from which I believe was the Op 2600, and then you got the like when you cry, you go everything about this song is so real and raw and menacing and just so honest and scary and creepy. But what makes it creepy and scary and morbid is the fact that it's so true to life. There's nothing sort of sensational or trying to be dark about this. It's just really, this is the way life is, in a sad way. Girl of 16, whole life ahead of her, slashed her wrists, bored with life. Didn't succeed, thank the Lord for small mercies. That's like, okay, thank you God for small mercies. Fighting back the tears, mother reads her note again. 16 candles burn in her mind. It's teenage angst. It's a teenager that's gotten to a point, with whatever's going on in her life, she can't cope, and she wants to commit suicide. And the mom, 16 candles burn in the mother's mind. She takes the blame. It's always the same. She blames herself for being a bad mother. She goes down on her knees and prays. It makes me think of Music for the Masses, sitting target, sitting praying, God is saying nothing. Coming back to this, she goes down on her knees and prays, and then you as the observer, in this case Martin, I don't want to start any blasphemous rumors, but I think that God's got a sick sense of humor, and when I die, I expect to find him laughing. And that did piss off the Jesus Brigade, as we call it. And as I say, I believe it was barred in a few states in America. And if you're from America and you know about that, please let me know. I'd like to find out more information on that. So if we look at the Alan Wilder sound set, as I said, it's got a lot of these creepy sort of music box sounds. Very sort of, once again, very childlike. And even the melodies are quite childlike, but which makes it quite haunting. For example, even in isolation, that's a very, very haunting sound. And you've also got some great innovation in the background. So it's not only a great song, which has got very deep, meaningful lyrics, but also the innovation in the background. You've got that, I talked about in the last video, how Martin Gore sampled the sound of a pebble, on a sort of like glass sliding door. You've got the runner, and he'd roll the pebble, and they'd record that, and that's actually in the song, the sound. There's also the sound of a bicycle wheel, and if you look at their concerts round about the 84, 85 period, they would have like a bicycle wheel on the stage, and I think that was for Blasphemous Rumors. You flip the wheel and take a stick, and you can hear that bicycle spokes being the sound of the bicycle spokes in Blasphemous Rumors. And you can hear the girl of 18. There's also scissors being used as cymbals. There's also the big voom, voom, big corrugated iron plate, which makes a whoop whoop kind of sound. Anyway, an incredibly innovative song with very deep, morbid lyrics, but which are very, very true to life. And Martin's music really makes you listen. It makes you concentrate. And this is just one of those songs which prove his genius as a songwriter. And it's quite a slightly morbid way to end the album, because when it gets to the last chorus, I don't want to start any blasphemous rumors, it kind of fades out, and then it comes out with a reprise, and that's, and then the very last sound you hear on this album is, it's very creepy and very unsettling, but this is a work of absolute brilliance. I love this album. I absolutely do. Right, let's jump into the 5 questions. Question number 1. Which song would I lose from this album if I had to lose one song? Now, I was thinking about this the other day. Whenever I listen to Depeche Mode's music, I don't listen to Depeche Mode as much as a lot of you would think I would. I never sort of listen to Depeche Mode's music sort of like passively. What I mean by that is I don't put it on and listen to it in the background. Whenever I listen to Depeche Mode, I really listen to it. I usually have a set of headphones. I put a vinyl on if it's appropriate, and I like to listen to it from beginning to end. I don't sort of like open up a playlist on, you know, on music streaming and go, oh, I want to listen to World in My Eyes, and then I want to listen to Everything Counts. I don't do that. I would typically, let's say in this album, I would put it on and I would listen to it from beginning to end. And the reason to me is, and probably just because I've been listening to it for so many years, is that their music to me, and also the way the songs flow, it's almost like it's like a whole cohesive piece of work. And to me, I can't sort of, like when I listen to a song like Something to Do, I'm already hearing Lie to Me starting, and then I'm hearing I'm hearing the beginning of People Are People after that. So it's very difficult for me to remove a song. It's a little bit like, if you get philosophical, if you were to take the human body and say, okay, you need to lose a part of your body. We're going to cut off your hand or your arm or your finger. You know, every part of the body is so functional and you cannot do without it. So being a little bit philosophical, I think that's what I mean. Is so because these are such, some of their early albums are so perfect to me, it's very difficult to imagine the album without a song. But anyway, if I had to lose a song from this album, I would probably lose It Doesn't Matter. And that's not because it's a bad song, it's just if I had to lose one, I would choose to lose that. Question 2, what is the most radical song on this album? Well, that's definitely People Are People, without a doubt. Question 3, which song have I listened to the most since I've had this album? The song that I've listened to the most over the years is definitely If You Want. Question 4, which is my favorite song at this very moment? And the reason, as I say, we have this question is because our tastes change over the years. But I can tell you that the song that is my favorite on this album is still If You Want. It's the song I've listened to the most, and it is still my favorite song on this album. Question 5, what are we going to rate this out of 10? Well, to sum it up, guys, as I say, this was the moment where all the pieces came together. They really found their sound. This is a pivotal moment in their innovation versus songs versus politics versus sexuality dominance. Martin, you kinky bastard. This album laid the foundation for all the great albums to come after that. And I'm going to give Some Great Reward 9.5 out of 10. Something I want to quickly mention that some of you picked up in the part 1 of this Some Great Reward review was that I never mentioned the emulator sampler keyboards. The reason for that is I really want to do a separate video on that, and to do that I'm going to bring in my good friend Simon Forsyth, who you saw in a previous video. Simon is not only a guru on synthesizers, but he's actually owned every single version of the emulator keyboards, or sampler keyboards as well. Now, I personally know a lot about the emulator sampler so far as what I've read about it. Theoretically, I've never had the privilege of actually, touching one or playing one. And so I'm very happy that Simon is going to come onto the channel, probably onto the Geek Talk series, and he's got a very, very in-depth knowledge. So I figured we'd get Simon on, for a more in-depth review on that iconic sampler. Right guys, and this concludes the album review for Some Great Reward. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Please leave your comments below. Anything you want to say or elaborate on the subject of Some Great Reward. Also, answer the 5 questions which I've answered, which was question 1, which do you think is the track that you would lose from this album if you had to lose one? Question 2, what do you think is the most radical track on this album? Question 3, which song have you listened to the most since you've had this? And question 4, which is your favorite song now? And then finally, what do you rate this album out of 10? As I say, I gave it 9.5. Guys, I'm looking really forward to the next one, which is Black Celebration. Once again, reminding you, I'll be getting Brian Griffin on again, and he will be talking about his the design and the album sleeve of Black Celebration. As always, I want to thank you for your support. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Take care of yourselves.